COT's base of operations is right here at thecouncilofTime.com. COT has no other outlet or venue. These are other folks who will rebroadcast. Anything COT does is by the main page here at thecouncilofTime.com. Good evening and welcome to the Council of Time. It's been a long few days, guys. Long few days, right? Oh, just in case you guys did not notice, the homepage schedule is blank. A new, we're doing our interface change today. So data will post following that because we're going to have to go into some deeper things, subjects, details, specifics about, more than a few conversations we have loosely or vaguely had, right? These won't be vague, comprehensive deep dives, I guess you could say, right? So that you guys understand all aspects. In other words, I would like to have it so clear that no one has questions afterward. We live in a different time. We do. And of course, the time is running out. That it is. In fact, one of the biggest changes in humanity. There's something is about to take place that has not taken place in about 11,000 years. I'd say about 11,000 years. I know people dispute the age of the earth. Not here to do that. That is just to say, in modern times, no one has gone through what we are about to go through. Right? For example, right now NASA's watching two Magnetars that could pose great risk to our solar system. Right? Two of them. Magnetar, by the way, it is one of the most feared objects we could ever encounter. It is worse than a binary, twin coming in. It's worse. A Magnetar does not move. The problem is they are severely active. Right? For example, if about, and I'm just using a time scale here so you guys understand, but imagine about 27 million years ago, one of these Magnetars sent out a spike, right? That spike could reach us at any moment. If that happens, life is no longer going to be as we know it. We are living by grace and mercy alone. I'm telling you, we're living by grace and mercy alone. Alone. Also, the entire northern hemisphere is about to be in trouble. That's why I have to give specifics, right? It's one thing. I can't tell you guys these things and not have any background and foundational information on that. So I really want to go into depth on some of these subjects, which we will be doing here at COT. Right? And due to the sensitivity of a few topics, I actually had to check with some folks so I can broadcast three of those topics here only at COT, right? Only at COT. I'm also going to make a recommendation before those conversations about recordings, right? So those who honor that, they'll be fine. Those who don't, well, this is one time you don't want to dishonor the recording mandate before these. Now, not this one, but they will be coming down the road. I'll make it clear and make it plain. And it will be before and after every single break that I make the same exact recommendation. That I will. But guys, we live in a very twisted time. I have to tell you guys, this is home base for us, right? So I'm going to go ahead and tell you the stone steps issue. At one point, I was almost convinced it was a done deal. It is not a done deal. You know how I know that? Because I had the exact same dream again. The exact same dream again. This time, I was in the midst of the people, and I could hear what they were talking about. My goodness, it's not done. So this leads me to believe that there's some very underhanded tactics taking place. It really is. I mean, some underhanded tactics. Now, no matter what your position is on Trump or Obama or any of these guys, I'm going to ask you guys something. Make sure your footing is right in the kingdom of God. Make sure that you're not in the same boat they're in. Okay? Because these accusations, they're full of just nonsense, to be honest with you. They're quite serious, but full of nonsense. Right? And we're talking about warranted nonsense, which is that's kind of an oxymoronic phrase. These accusations or innuendos or whatever you want to call them against President Trump, people should they have computers, right? If you listen to the media and if you listen to people who do not know about the situation but jump on the bandwagon, all they're doing is throwing fuel on a fire. Just in case you don't know, they're trying everything they can try to accuse each other. Please don't join into the accusation thing. That will turn into violence and eventually lead to murder. There was a person who, and this is happening more and more, there are people who hear opinions about Trump and opinions about Obama. They have gone out to kill people because they heard somebody's opinion on Trump and or Obama and or Biden or Hunter Biden. Do you know that? How would the Father view a person if your comment is leading people to take the lives of others? Please think about that, because you don't want to be the person with the blood on your hands from that. None of us can play innocent from that. Satan will always look for an excuse to amplify the emotions of a person so that they would act upon somebody else in some act of sin. He's trying to maximize any fall that you may have. And he can only do that through our disobedience. He cannot do that when we stand in righteousness. In other words, when we stand our ground, he cannot do that. He can't. But here at COT, we're here to pull down a type of veil so that you guys can actually see. All right? Things are, they're starting to get out of control. They really are. And you guys know I don't like the blame thing, anything, right? If somebody wanted to blame me of something terrible, they could do it. They could do it. Right? They do it all the time. But the violence that is taking place is going to come with massive consequences. Do you guys know that a lot of people for a long time have interpreted the Word of God without reprisal for a long time? All that's about to come to an abrupt end. Man will find out that he has been wrong about his emotional ambitions against his fellow man. If God the Father came, looked upon mankind at the height of his sin, when we were doing sickening things, and he did not hate us but loved us enough to send his only begotten Son to command his love towards us, then what are we doing to each other? What are we doing? What in the world are we doing? I'll tell you this. Satan is active. He will utilize any subject to blame someone, any subject to stoke the fires of violence. And when violence, because what's happening now is the rise of a dark kingdom. And in my opinion, the rise of the Antichrist is the revival. Do you know that? When the evil rises, the gloves come off. Righteousness will be concentrated within those who are to be kept. And I believe that is the revival. That's the alarm clock, right? What you see happening now is a prelude, part of Satan's attempt to position people, to get them guilty, to get them depressed in their guilt. one of his tactics. So hopefully you can hear this. Satan will often draw people into things. And for a long time, nothing happens. And for a long time, it appears that a person may be right in their opinion about something else. But then the truth comes out. Now, when the truth comes out and people are already drawn into it, they are sickened themselves by what they have been a part of. It messes with their faith. Guilt steps in, by the way, which is not of our Father. Depression then settles in. Voices of accusation settle in. Reminders will begin to flow through every venue imaginable. And a person is left there really believing that they do not deserve to even be among human beings. That will lead to suicide and everything else. When a person gets this way, they're in direct denial of the cross. They are. But there's a reckoning. Because if you ever, can you imagine if you agreed with a murderer, cult leader? If another year passes and you find out that you've been in agreement, advocating for, right, lockstep with some sort of a cult leader who was responsible for the death of millions, would you feel like trash, right? You would feel that way. You would. That's what Satan is attempting to do, to get you to become a part of something before the truth is revealed. And when the truth is revealed, then you being in support of it 100%. It's not going to bode very well. You're going to have to deal with what you were a part of. This is what he's attempting to do. Now, before anybody gets confused, we're not talking about Trump, just in case you want to know that. I know a lot of people are upset about the Epstein files, but people need to begin to recall things. The one thing I don't do is I don't forget statements and things that people have done. Evidently, the world has forgotten. The world forgot what happened in 2008 and 2009. The world does not remember when Donald J. Trump, he was the one who alerted the police to Jeffrey Epstein. They don't remember that. They don't remember when he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. They don't remember that. They don't even, half the people, they don't know that. They don't know. I'm going to do my best to make it known everywhere, and I've been doing that for about a week and a half. You know how you plant seeds of facts? Yes. People need to know those things, don't they? Yes, they do. In fact, Trump was on record, in a police record, stating that he suspected that things were going on with children, and he reported that to the authorities. And you know what everybody said? He's a wacko. That's what they said. That's what they said. That's what they said about Trump. He was crazy. He was a wacko or something like that. So a lot of people, they just don't know these things. So they're throwing accusations back and forth. Now, the one thing you guys know my position on these leaders. I do not advocate for those seats of leadership. They have a job to do. That's their job, not mine. I don't envy their position either. But it's a bad thing to see somebody hurl around accusations. I didn't like it with Obama. I didn't like it. I don't like it with Trump. I didn't like it against Biden. I just don't like those things. And do you know why? Because there's something all of us can be accused of. Every single last one of us. And because nobody has accused us. Can you imagine if God allowed someone to know everything in your life and then to go to the media and make that known? You just think about that. Think about that. The only difference between us and those guys at the top is their stuff was made public and ours has not been made public. Think about that. You just think about that. And so people are so quick to jump behind an accusation. And those same people can be accused of probably much worse. Just think about that. Also, you're not the same person you were 5 years ago. People change. If you committed something 5 to 10 years ago, so what? But you're different now. I know that from the Word of God. I know that from living life. People always change. Don't ever say in your heart, this or that person will not change. That's a big lie. Everybody changes. Everybody does. You're not the same person you were 10 years ago. You're not. People change. Remember that. That's why I don't like accusations. They're foolish, and that had to be invented by Satan himself. It's foolishness. As a consequence of that, society is falling apart. I just want you to know that. But there is a small reprieve, a small time of rest. And I hope that you guys take full advantage of it. It could be the last rest you'll have for some time. Take advantage of it. Now, to understand all this, that means we have to go through backstories and foundations and information and very specific things. So a thorough look into all these things will give you a great perspective. Why is all of this necessary? You're in the middle of something. You've been engaged in something all your life and you don't even know about it. And it's time that people know exactly what that is. Now, for those who have knowledge of this, I'm praying that they do come forward and that they will, with great patience, introduce what people have been a part of for all this time so that people can see it. It's one thing for me to understand something, right? And for me to see it. But if you don't see it, if you don't understand it, then what good is it to have that knowledge in the first place? What good is it to know the truth of something when your brothers and sisters are still held hostage by that very thing that you know the truth of? My hope is that you will be able to see fully what's been going on for some time. Because when you see it, when you see that invisible chain, when you begin to identify it, and I mean factually identify it, not by assumption, right? Not by theory, but factually identify it, you can seek to be free of that chain. When your eyes but it takes maturity. It takes maturity. There are some things you have to understand before your eyes are opened. And I mean fully opened. Number one, you have to be prepared for the truth. How many people think they're prepared for the truth? Now, how many people, people pursue truth all the time, but how many people think they're prepared for the truth? That's the gray area. Most people would say, yes, I'm prepared for the truth, right? That's because you have not learned that truth yet. So I need to have you remember something. All the upsets in your life, all the trials of your life, all the moments of your life that caused you the greatest amount of stress, those were nothing more than moments of truth. That's when you learn the truth. Think about that for a second. You think about that. I'm going to take a break and I'll be right back. You think about that for a second. Just for a second. And I'll be right back in just a minute, right here at COT. Think about that. I'll be right back. Okay. I should have opened a can of worms with that statement, right? Here it is. Your father has been involved in your life from day one. Day one. Every traumatic moment in your life was working something in your life. Think of your most traumatic moment. Because I'm sure a lot of people would say, well, not everything was for the purpose of truth. Yes, it was. Everything. When somebody mistreated you, at first, before they mistreated you, You saw one person, the person you interpreted. Then when the bad behavior of that person was imposed upon you, you saw the truth. Didn't you? In life, you really believed the words of the world, thinking so many things you could have. You thought the world was precisely what they described until it bit you. Then you found out the ugly side of life. You saw the truth of portions of this world. You saw the frailty and the tactics of the many who spoke to you. You found out who they were. You even know by what power they speak. You may be in denial of it, but you see it. God has been present in your life from day one, introducing you to truth, because he operates in the realm of truth, not lies, not deceit, but truth. Every painful moment in your life, I mean the real painful ones, that was your eyes being opened to the truth of what was before you. In that respect, believe it or not, it was a blessing. Because just think, if God had not had you go through any of that, you would still believe the lie, not the truth. God showed you what darkness was. And every time you denied that darkness was in something, you found out darkness had its role in it anyway. You saw darkness for what it was. God also showed you kindness. He's also been teaching you. Because see, in the end, you can't be a person that sees darkness and you just condemn the whole thing without compassion. No. If our Father has compassion, you better believe that you're built to have compassion, and you are to see things with compassion. You've got to be able to see the monster in somebody and still love them from your heart. Can you do that? Because see, a lot of you have been offended. You've been betrayed one too many times. You had too many Judases in your life. Maybe you played your role as Judas. That's when you're deceived into believing a certain way of life is acceptable. You become the Judas, and then you find out this isn't the way. I've been tricked. And in shame, you kind of withdraw. But God showed you the truth. Every tactic of Satan, God used to open your eyes to see the truth. So those of you who have had the worst times, you should have the most truth. Our Father works that way. Now, many of you, when these people betrayed you and things were done against you, sometimes it can make you bitter. Your Father knows that already. He already knows about the bitterness. But you got to remember, you are also young like infants. Of course, an infant's going to be mad if it wants a bottle and you give it wants milk and you give it water. It's going to throw a tantrum. The parent doesn't disown the child because it threw that tantrum. All of us, in our own ways, have thrown tantrums. We were growing. We didn't know. There are many things we don't know, and when we don't know, we begin to operate in a type of foolishness, pure and simple. And God raises us up to see that foolishness. He will show us the truth. We'll interact, of course. And then he shows us a side we never saw before. It's like that story I told you guys about a person lying all the time. Most people go to a liar and they condemn the liar. Did Jesus condemn the liar? Or did he die for the liar? I say he died for the liar, didn't he? So that liar would not have to lie anymore. And when that liar changed his or her heart, their sins could be forgiven. What a loving God we have as a Father. That's something. That's like the forbidden thing in it, to talk about liars. Everybody's turn against liars. I'll tell you something, all of us have lied. All of us have fallen short of the glory of God. All of us have been involved in sin. You know, in the Bible, it says, if a man says he has no sin, he's a liar. That's what the Bible says. A person is a liar if they say they have no sin. So let's establish that first. All of us have played our part in this. Some, they lied more than others. They did. But you're here to tell people they don't have to lie. They don't have to do that. That's what you're here for. What works better? For a person to chastise another person that tells them what they already know, that they're a liar? Or somebody who will come with them with wisdom and say, hey, listen, you don't have to do that to escape the punishment, to escape appearing to be this or appearing to be that by lying. You don't have to lie. You don't have to. And you tell them the Redeemer has come. And because the Redeemer has come, he already knows what you're doing to survive. You do not have to exercise darkness another day in your life to survive. You can now walk in this world by way of truth. And that truth is complemented by the Father through Christ. How awesome is that? You don't hear that message a lot, especially in this world. You know what you hear in this world? Condemnation. That's what you hear. And the enforcers of condemnation. Jesus did not come to condemn this world. He didn't. We are commissioned for the sake of the gospel. A time will come when judgment does come. It will. And no one, when the Bible says no one is going to mistake judgment. No one. No one. They're going to consider it perfectly without error. No one will miss that. But this is one of those moments when your eyes are open to darkness. When you actually see it, when you actually see the darkness, you start seeing the truth, and you see the light. Do you think God wants you to turn into a raving lunatic who's going to, just point fingers at everybody and condemn everybody? No. God must be able to trust you with the truth. Correct? You're going to be able to have the truth and stay within that place of love. All too often, people can see a truth and their hearts are ripped to shreds. Do you know why? Here it is. In life, there's something God is moving us towards, and there's something we want. And often they conflict. If you're living this in this world, and you have a vision of what you want, it may not align with what God has for you. That's why people get frightened about the times they live in. They're frightened. They're frightened because they're finding it very difficult to accept that prophecy is happening. They're frightened, and they shouldn't be frightened. They shouldn't be scared. You know how people say, well, these people are fear-mongering. Well, fear-mongering only works for those who are fearful. If you know the truth, if you know about revelation, if you know about prophecy, how can you operate by fear when that is the Father's desire, that is His will, that is His way, that's what's going to happen? Fear has no place with us, has no place with you. And to operate by the spirit of fear is to selfishly operate. That's when we go astray. Fear. Fear causes people to go astray. Doesn't it? Fear speaks to you. Fear will tell you that you have to save yourself. Why do you think in the Bible it says those who seek to save their lives are going to lose it? It's because only fear can talk you in to saving your own life. That's what fear does. Confidence in Christ will have you'll lay your life down for the sake of somebody else. But fear will have you take your life up into your own bosom and keep it at all costs. That's what fear does. So everybody who operates by fear is going to try to save their own skins. Fear has been in operation for a long time. People are afraid. You know what evil spirits are very good at doing? They amplify emotions. They do. They amplify emotions. You can be upset with a situation because you don't want that outcome to be, right? We're learning. That's acceptable. But spirits know how to amplify. You being upset, turn that into full-fledged violence. That's what's happening in the world right now. And then you have those who consume the violence. They love the violence. They're fed by the violence. They're fed by arguments. Do you not know that spirits crave arguments? You guys crave unity, peace, right? Things that are organized. You're children of the light, so you should like things that are organized. Even if you're an unorganized person, you crave organization, right? You can go to somebody with the messiest house. Inside, they want everything in their own place. They want things to look nicer. They just cannot bring themselves to commit to finally doing that because they're working with everything they have. When you find it like an author, right? An author, they have the messiest, good authors who cover some very deep subjects. They have the messiest places you've ever seen in your life. And the reason why is because they're always reading something, always going through something, right? They'll put a piece of paper up. Oh, I need that piece of paper. They need it all at one time to organize their thoughts, to put it down, on paper, so to speak. Authors do that. But they want to be organized. No one wants to be messy. Why? Because you're children of the light. That's why. Do you know darkness is the opposite? Darkness is different. The fallen ones, they're different. Those spirits are different. They crave murder. They crave it. The same way you would sit around and say, I'd like to just sit outside and enjoy this nice sunlight on this nice peaceful day. They crave murder. They crave division. They crave everything in the darkness that you are not. And you're truly separated from that darkness. That's what the Father did at the beginning. And you know what they desire? You. They desire what they cannot have. You. So not only has the Father been with you your entire life, working your entire life, but they've been waiting on the sidelines to devour you. Should you ever turn on your own family, should you ever turn on the light, they have been waiting to devour you. They have a craving for it. The same way you would embrace a person when you see them and truly be uplifted in the heart if you know them because you haven't seen them in a while. They fight each other. They begin to maim each other and injure each other. All right? The same way you would give somebody, some lemonade on a hot day to help them feel better. Right? They would induce physical damage. The same way you crave those things of light, they crave the darkness. So ladies, never try to understand darkness. To understand darkness is for you to be a part of it. They are everything outside of righteousness. And when they found out that there was a clear separation between you, the righteous, and them, they resorted to sneaky tactics. Now let me give you this news flash. Your Father in heaven did not design the kingdoms in this world. That was done under the authority of Lucifer. Just so you know that. So the systems in this world are designed to corrupt you. You do realize that the entire purpose of existence of this earth and everything in it is for your process of growth. You do realize that. And when that was interrupted, when Satan interrupted that, he's been utilizing all things of darkness against you. You're the target, not the Muslims. They're not the target. All these other religions, they are not the target. You are the target. Those things exist to entrap you, to get you talking about things, to get you engaged with things, to deceive you. You're the target. Of all of what you remember this. There was a war between darkness and light. And remember that you're the children of the day, not of the night. So all these cravings that you have within you, that are born within your flesh, you're at war with that also, your own desires. You know in the Bible, and it says, what's it say? The flesh and the spirit do war against one another. Continually war against one another. They will not agree. So you have a mandate to bring your body under subjection. That means you, the spirit, you first realize that your body is going to have cravings, right? Just like an animal. And that much of those cravings can be augmented or amplified by darkness. But you have to give your stamp of approval to act on them. Only when you act on them do you become guilty of that sin against somebody else. You're in the driver's seat. Your body is a car. And you're in the driver's seat. You are not the car. You're the driver in the car. Right? You determine the direction of that temple. And by the way, because you are the church made without hands, you are the temple made without hands, you are that place that houses a holiness. You got to set some standards for yourself. But in this time that we're living in now, here's what Satan has done. He has gotten everybody to focus on other people, and you're neglecting your own temple. See, most people, they're starting to live their lives in massive denial. This is personal to each of us. So it's not something you can blame somebody else for. That denial is, we don't even think about the corruptness in our own temples a lot. We're so focused on somebody else's temple. Think about that. In other words, imagine a person, I gave a story in COT a long time ago. It was about a castle. You guys remember that story? The castle. You're living in a castle. But some people are at the window of their castle looking at somebody else's castle. One of the key words I gave in that talk was this. In your own castle, in your own temple, right, have no closed doors, but open everything up to the Messiah. Everything. Every junk drawer, every closet, everything, have it open to the Messiah and begin to clean out your own places. You don't have time to focus on somebody else's temple. You have just enough time to get your life right. Do you know that? You have just enough time. You can spread the goodness of the Lord and His truth via the gospel. That happens by way of your life and by way of your communication. But you have just enough time to get your own temple right. In the Bible it says, a man ought to mind his own business. Just like it said, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands. Not to everybody else. To your own husbands. That's why it's an abomination to gossip. Do you know that? To spread stories about somebody else, that's an abomination to the Most High. Lord have mercy. He doesn't like that. Nope. He doesn't like that. He does not like a talebearer. Doesn't like that. That's somebody who carries a story about somebody else. So quick to carry a story. See, the world, I'm trying to get you to see something. The world is based on these things and will indeed pay you for these things. Are you starting to see the conflict? Are you starting to see the truth of the world? See, because I'll say it again. I began this way. To see the truth, you have to be able to handle it. And when you start seeing the truth, you're going to live by a different standard. Because where there was no truth, where you could not see it and there was no truth, you didn't have to deal with making a decision. But once you see the truth, you have to make a choice. Do you see the burden that comes with truth? Truth comes with a burden of the natural. Not of the supernatural, but of the natural. Do you see that? Everybody see that? So as God opens your eyes, you're going to have to make some choices. Now, to make certain choices, you got to be mature. A young person cannot make certain choices. What if God would have opened your eyes to music at the age of 5? If he would have done that, you would have never been able to enjoy the radio or anything else with your friends. Your life would have been very different. In our ignorance, we didn't know what those songs were based upon. We didn't know about the producers and the little formulas and frequencies and things that they would add in there. We didn't know that they prayed over the songs that they distributed. We didn't know that. And so essentially people were spreading poison by many different songs, but they didn't know that. Had you known that, it would have altered your childhood. And you see how gracious God is? He's not going to give you the truth, all of it, all at one time. You have to be mature enough to handle that truth, lest it destroy you. Now, if that were not true, all of us would have the whole truth already. But you know and I know that we have to mature. The more we mature, the more truth God shows us. Let me give you a small example of how God shows us the truth. You have a best friend, a person that means everything in your life. Hear me on this. You have a good relationship, you have your ups and downs and everything else, but that is your friend, and you're thanking God for your friend a lot. And they really complimented your life and helped you out in some hard spots and vice versa. Right? So you get to the point where you say, thank God for that friend. But your eyes are not opened, not fully yet. If God, now suppose that lasted 10 years, you had a good friend for 10 years. In the 10th year, God opens your eyes and you see everything about that person. I mean everything. You see what they think about, what motivates them, some of the crooked thoughts they had, some of the potentials they almost did. You start to see it all. All of a sudden, if you're not ripe, if you're not a ripe fruit, and you start seeing the truth about somebody else, you could be easily disgusted by that person because of what you saw. That'd be like you learning a fact, something that happened to them 15 years ago, right? You could actually get angry at a person for what they did 15 years ago and be disgusted by it. And it would ruin that relationship. Now think about that. That means if you don't know it, it doesn't interfere with anything. You have a beautiful relationship. But as soon as you learn somebody's past, it alters your love for them. Now I ask you this, why would God show you the truth about anybody? If you're going to start to alter your relationship today based on something that no longer exists. Think about it. See the burden that comes with truth? You see it? Your discernment is controlled by the Most High, not by you. He's not going to allow you to have full discernment. If all you're going to do is learn a new fact about somebody and accuse them with what you find, that's exactly what Satan does. Satan does not accuse you, right? He doesn't accuse you of the good things you do. He accuses you of the bad things you've done. He is the reason why people walk around and say, oh, in my past I was so horrible, I'm not deserving of forgiveness. And then he makes people like that. He will cause a person to deny the cross because he brings up old things all the time. You guys know it because when you're around certain family members or people in your circles, there are certain individuals that will always bring up some stuff of the past. You're a converted person now. You're not that person anymore, but they will not fail but to bring it up, and you know they know about it. And it limits what you can discuss with them because you know that they know who you used to be. So now you can't even conversate in specific ways because you're trying to dodge igniting that person, right? That's how Satan works. That's a what? An assignment. Remember, we had to talk about that. That's an assignment. They are there to make you stop talking about salvation. And before you say nobody can do that, don't say that. Don't you say that because people have already done that. These are tactics of darkness. So God must bring you to a place. He must bring you to a place where you can see the truth and still operate by his love. If he shows you the truth, but you cannot operate by his love, there's no way he's going to show you what you want to see. Why do you think so many people hunt the internet? It's because God has not shown them the truth. Once you have the truth, you stop looking. True? If you find what you're looking for, you don't look for it anymore. Isn't that correct? But we all know people are constantly trying to find something on the internet because they haven't found it yet. Once you find it, you don't continue to search for it. You don't do that. You found it. Can we back all of this up with Scripture? That's the most important thing, right? This conversation is useless if you cannot back it up with Scripture. And this is what our detailed talks are going to be about. Can it be backed up with Scripture? You better believe it in a very organized and in context way. I mean, a clear way. God is so good the way he does things. There's a certain destination you have. It is seldom discussed anymore. The destiny that God has for us, that destiny that's already documented. People hardly ever discuss that. There is a place he's bringing you to. There is a place. He's going to bring you to that place. But we have to be matured so he can do it. And Lord knows we don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time. We don't. You guys know about the stories about something is coming here to earth. Now, I'm not going to say what it is, but we don't have a lot of time. We don't. And the Lord, when his coming is near, people are going to operate in their own truth. This is something you got to get ready for too. You have to get ready for people to become what you never thought they would be. You have to prepare yourselves for that. Really do. Now, I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I'm going to talk about preparations. We're going to open up the can of worms about preparations. Not preparations like, make sure you have water and no. You have to be prepared. You do realize that a war almost started last night. A world war, a global war almost started last night. Right now, the needle of us going to war is very close to the ignition point. Emergency talks this morning to handle two specific situations. And in my opinion, they're failing. There's a bit of despotism happening right now. And people, but here's my thing though. Here's my thing. here's one of the issues. When I find out things like this, right, things that are absolute, not theories, but absolute, not by news media or anything else, but things that are absolute, I often see people discerning the true times that we live in. The number one topic this morning were two topics. One was about ICE. The other one was about Trump and Epstein. So I'll go ahead and boldly say this. Can I say this? I'm going to give you this is my view. This whole Epstein thing, right, is nothing more. It's being utilized to keep your eyes in a very specific direction so that you will not tamper with the rest, because all the while people have been looking at this Epstein thing and the ICE thing. That means deportation and the Epstein thing are doing their a distraction big time. Are they real events? Yes. But that's exactly what a distraction is. It's an amplified real event to take your attention off something else. But don't think for a moment that those people in the White House contrived this whole thing. Stop thinking that way. You know that in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it states, there are 10 kings who have received no power as of yet, but will 1 hour with the beast, and they will agree and give their kingdom over to the beast. Which means the 10 kings that empower the beast, they're not public. You don't know their names. You don't know their faces. You don't know them. Because even in Revelation, it states they didn't receive any kingdom until it was time for them to give their power over to the beast. For the sake of that act, they became those kings. It never said they were elected. They're waiting. If you think somehow those people are going to be elected, you're wrong. You're wrong. If you think, in fact, we're going to have to get down, we're going to have to go into the seat that's in America, the seat that's in South America, the seat that's in Europe, and the seat that's in the Middle East. 3 seats are in the Middle East. 3. There is no seat in Russia. None. There's no seat. That seat was moved. In fact, that seat was destroyed, ironically. Now, you would think that Russia would be the place where one of these seats I'm talking about, these are spiritual seats. They're actual seats. But these are where ancient things would sit, right? They're seats of kingship. For example, like Baphomet's seat, Lucifer's seat, right? Those kind of seats. Abaddon's seat. Those kind of seats. The problem is, they've looked at just about everything. They haven't realized what they are yet. They have painted a story atop many things. People here in America, for example, have worshipped Baphomet's seat. They have worshipped it. They didn't even know it. They didn't know it. And before anybody says, well, you know, what you don't know can't hurt you. Yes, it can. You know how many times I hit my pinky toe on a table in the middle of the night? Don't tell me that what I can't see can't hurt me. Don't tell me that, because it can. It can't. You know, I sat on a beehive one time. That hurt. Oh, yes, that hurt. So what you can't see can most certainly hurt you. Right? It can hurt you. What we can't see, all too often we choose not to see it. We do. We choose not to see it. Nobody in their right mind is going to walk in their own house and pitch in just absolute darkness unless they're overly confident. I know where I'm going, and then wacko, they hit that table, right? somebody cooking. I know what I'm doing. I've done this 1,000 times. And a grease fire starts or something like that. It's that overconfidence, that prideful overconfidence that always causes some sort of a mishap. I know that. Well, guess what? There's a type of pride within all these countries. There's a spiritual wickedness in all these countries that are being served every single day. And without knowing, we've been indoctrinated to agree with the servitude unto these things and to even advocate for them. You know, in the Bible, when Jesus says, you're in this world, but you're not of this world, right? You know what he says? He's bought us from death to life. That means prior to him or prior to a person being in relationship with Christ, absolutely believing upon his name, they're in death. So anybody who does not have a relationship with Christ abides in death. And if they abide in death, they belong to something else, because everything in death belongs to death. And those things of death. And they serve those things of death. There is no in between. They're also in darkness. We're bought to the marvelous light, as it says in the Bible. We truly have an opportunity before us. The preparation is you have to be fully prepared to see the truth. Your Father's truth, not man's truth. Your Father's truth, which, by the way, does not fail. Your Father's truth, which does not tarry. Your Father's truth, which is absolute, and it does not change, nor can it be altered. Your Father's truth. The world operates by theories. They don't operate by truth. God called us to abide in truth, in righteousness. Truth is part of righteousness. We are to live, to occupy, to be in that righteousness, his truth, not the world. The Bible teaches us the world cannot have the truth, and it cannot have the spirit of truth. So if the world has never been operating by the truth or spirit of truth, all you have to do is reflect in your own mind and see how many times you acted on something the world said. To act on something the world said is to act on something the representatives of the world said. If they're not representatives of the kingdom of the living God explicitly, then they're representatives of the world, period. And the world is in them. Do you hear me? The Holy Spirit's in you, but the world is in them. And the language of the world is spoken by them. Stay with me. You've been taught by the world. You speak the language of the world, but you're not of this world. The Messiah is to redeem you out of the world, not being part of the world anymore. He gave us a standard to follow. We are to have no corrupt communications come out of our mouths. No cursings should come out of our mouths. Also in the Bible it says, it's not what goes in a man that defiles him, but what comes out. Can you understand why that would even be? Why would the Lord ever say that? Why would that be inspired that anybody say that in the first place? See, they were talking about pork. You know how people don't like pork? Well, don't eat pork. Pork is unclean, this, that, and the other. That's not what the Lord said. The Lord said, if you go to a place and that's what they eat is pork, don't be offensive and not eat the pork, eat the pork. Then he emphasized, it is what comes out of us that defiles us, not what goes in. If you go into another house, they don't eat pork, then don't eat pork. Don't offend the place you visit. He didn't tell you to bow down and to worship it. That's not what he said. He said, don't offend it. Don't offend it. If you go to a country and they don't do a specific thing, then you don't do that specific thing. Why? If you do offend them, you're not going to be able to talk to them. That's very simple. You cannot talk to people you have offended. They're not going to hear a word you have to say. Correct? It's very simple. But it's for us, just like Paul said, I can eat anything. All things are permissible to him. All things, right? He said, but all things are not expedient. Right? Drinking. Is there anything wrong with drinking? No, there is not. But the Bible says, do not drink to the point of drunkenness, and that we are not to drink strong drink. Uh-oh, I stepped on some toes on that one. I can hear somebody now, well, I just had a shot. Yeah, but we're not to have strong drink. You know why drinking is bad? Because it causes us to defile what that principle I just shared with you. When you get drunk, you start speaking everything that enters into your mind. When you're sober, many things enter your mind. But we do just what the Bible says. We take captive our thoughts. We cast down imaginations that would dare exalt themselves above the living God. Right? So just because it enters into our mind doesn't mean we speak about it or act upon it. Right? But when you're drunk, if it enters into your mind, guess what happens? You're not sober anymore. You'll speak whatever enters into your mind, thus defiling yourself. Think about it. You have no filter when you're not sober. You have no filter. The Lord wants us sober. You'll have plenty of things that enter into your mind. That doesn't make you guilty. What makes you guilty is when you agree with those things that enter into your mind. Somebody says, why does it say beers for those who are perishing? Where does it say that at? I've never in my life heard that. No, it didn't read that in the Bible. Where'd you get that from? Where'd that come from? There's nothing wrong with beer. Nothing wrong with wine. Is it expedient to open up a beer in front of a teenager who's having emotional problems? No, it is not. Yeah, I wouldn't dare drink. Right? I don't drink anyway. Just to let you know, I don't touch alcohol. You know why? Because there are too many people who can see me as a person, and it could cause them to stumble. So I just won't do it. Do I like to taste a beer? No. There's one beer, I think it's okay. I don't drink them. I did have a beer some time ago, like when I was 20, 22. Yes, I did. I just don't lie. I just, I don't drink. Not one of those people, just don't drink. And the reason I didn't want to, I'm going to let you guys know this. It's not that I did not like the taste of beer. That's not the case. Just so you know. I did like the taste of the beer I was drinking. But I don't drink because it can cause people to stumble. That means when I was 22, I believe, 22, 23, right? I did drink. I didn't drink a lot, didn't drink every day. But I would drink, right? I quit doing it. Do you know why? Because it would cause the young to stumble. That's why. I knew a Muslim family once. I did. There was no way I was going to offend that family. Do you know that whole family converted? Do you know that? God used me to have that whole family converted. Not by talking them to death either. They knew I was a Christian. They knew I was a soldier. They did. But they watched me closely with my interactions with the other soldier. Nobody discussed the Bible. Nobody discussed the Quran. I did not offend them. They asked me one day, how come you're not like the rest of them? I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you're not forcing, any knowledge? I said, because the Lord doesn't work that way. I said, salvation must be chosen. It's something you have to choose or not. God is a loving God. He does nothing by force. And the guy said, well, do you think Satan is responsible? I said, absolutely. He does not want a person to come to the light of the truth. And then we jump to another subject. But because of my interactions, they began to believe in Christ. Because of my responses, because of the way I carried myself around them, because I wouldn't offend them with their customs. They did ask me about that. But they said I wasn't forceful. Everybody else they had met. Now, the guy was a Muslim, but he was also a soldier. And everybody they had ever met that was a Christian would end up getting in an argument with them and insulting their home and everything else. I had to do that because I don't operate by that spirit of force. I don't need to prove God is the God. He can prove that himself. I'm not here to prove that, to get into arguments with somebody else. No, I'm here to demonstrate the principles of Christ in real time. And if I actually believe in that, that's what I'll live by. I just want to make that clear, because you get a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't drink this and you shouldn't drink that. No, you should remain sober. I'm not going to partake of anything that's going to cause a young person to stumble. That includes certain foods. There are certain foods I like. I will not partake of those foods because of the young. Won't do it. Because I know the truth about specific things, I will not partake of them. I just won't. It would cause somebody else to stumble. Satan, hear me on this, please. Satan will utilize. Have you ever noticed that people always catch you doing something at the wrong time? Let's be real. There's always somebody who will always catch you doing something at the wrong time. Let's be real. All right? Always. And because I already know this, Satan waits for the opportunity to point you out when you're doing something that can cause somebody else to stumble. So how do you stop that from happening? You stop partaking of anything that will cause somebody else to stumble. That's how. Does it take away from your standard of life? Yes, it does. But so what? Jimmy cracked corn. So what? Doesn't matter. It matters that these young people see an example of the Lord's truth. And if given the opportunity to represent that, you have to do so by the way you live your life, then so be it. What a massive opportunity. What a massive opportunity. That's why I don't touch that stuff. I'm not going to touch that stuff for that reason. It will cause the young to stumble. That's a fact. So I'm a very different individual in that, because I know what Satan does. Satan, he waits. He waits until you're in the wrong position to point you out to somebody else. All of you know that. There's always somebody in your life, right? When you let your guard down just a little, here they show up. And you're thinking in your mind, are you kidding? Why did they always see this side and not the other side? Of course, Satan is not going to, he's not going to point you out when you're doing the good thing. He's going to point you out when you can be accused by somebody else. He's going to bring up your dirt as often as he can. That's who he is. And when he works through people, that's who they become. They become nothing but dirt finders. They dig up dirt on, they do not believe in change. They do not believe in forgiveness. They hurl accusations. And they don't forgive. And I'm telling you all, if you're not careful, you'll align yourself with the world and join in with this war that they're having against each other. And time is running out because Do you really think the Lord would suffer? You think he would suffer the innocent ones being the casualties of war over the foolishness of men? No, he will not. He already wrote down when he would intercede. He already wrote that down. We're almost at that point. And when he does, I'm telling you right now, it is not going to be favorable for anybody. But if you belong to him, he will favor you of everybody. Do you hear me? If you belong to him, he will favor you out of everybody. But I can tell you right now, it's not going to be favorable to men. Up here we go again. You remember last time, to get the point across, I said, let me give you guys an example. Then I gave you guys some dates. Hopefully you watched those dates carefully. They were crunched together. So this time I'll give you 2 days. A demonstration. A foreshadowing. You think the Lord is going to perpetually put up with? He won't suffer this forever. So then in 2 days, you'll see a foreshadowing of what happens when God's hand of grace is lifted from any place. You'll see. You'll see. Because there are dangers everywhere. Everything is ready to blow up, but it's only his hand of grace holding it back. Think about that. His hand of grace is in the earth because of you. But where you are not, evil reigns. The Lord will not always suffer evil to reign. He has his appointed times. But don't make the mistake into thinking that somehow he's going to tolerate that forever. When his hand of grace is lifted, when no mercy is upon a place, you'll see the evil that's ready to devour it in an instant. So let that be a foreshadowing. I'll be right back in a few minutes right here at the Council of Time. Back. Preparations. Lots of flames. You're going to be in a lot of places eventually. Before that time, though, before the water event consumes things and quarantines involve the rest, there's a time of reprieve coming. Hear me on this, because there won't be a lot of time in between that. That means when things level out, take full advantage of that time to get your family in order. You got to get your family in order. That means your personal documents, right? Your personal documents like your birth certificates, Social Security cards, those things. They should be in a waterproof bag. They should be ready. Your identification should be ready. There will be a digital failure. You've got to be prepared for that. During that time, many things are going to get jumbled up. You got to be prepped for that. Be prepared to identify yourself, not by computer, but by papers, because all those who don't have those documents, they're going to have a very difficult time. Very difficult. And before you say the Lord's going to take care of me, I can tell you this: if you lose your bank card, if you forget your account number and you have no identification, you're not going to go to a bank and just work with them as though you do have identification. Okay? we know the Lord's standard concerning these things of the world. So make sure you have all your identification documents. Please make sure of that. Make sure they are in some sort of waterproof bag, fireproof if you can. As far as where you live, you need 3 exits. You need an exit strategy based on where you live. 3, not 1 or 2. You're actually going to have to look at a map. You're going to have to know the height. You're going to have to know your location. If something happens, you're going to have 3 exit points. 1 with a highway, right? 1 without. Back roads if necessary. Normally what happens in some sort of catastrophe, people get trapped all the time because of the road, the exits are congested. There will be evacuations because of storms, and you have to be prepped for that. You got to be prepared. So you need your personal documents and at least 3 exits for your families. You need that. Right? Also, it would not be a bad idea to look at ground levels in your area. Find out where the flood zones are in your areas. Find out where they are. Make sure you know exactly where they are. Make sure of that. And again, it would not hurt to get a paper map. If certain portions of your, wherever you are, they get flooded out, right? If you're used to reading terrain, you can be thrown off. If you don't know where you're at and you're reliant upon technology or even a map that you have not thoroughly studied, you can be thrown off by the topology is going to change during floods. It's not going to look the same. Exits could be cut off and you have to have alternatives. Right? Most people don't even know the area they're in because of GPS, believe it or not. They don't study maps anymore. They haven't looked at the map. A lot of people have not gone out of their houses enough to explore where they live to find, specific things like that. So find that out. Also for your family, you have to have at least 3 meeting places for your family. 3. So something happens and communications go down. You need to have 3 places where you guys meet up. Okay? 3 places. So if one place is compromised, you go to the next one. If that place is compromised, you go to the next one. What that ensures is that for your own peace of mind, that your family can meet up in certain locations should communications go down. We've had examples of communications interruptions. During disasters, cell phones are the first things to go down. Starlink went down the other day. Do you guys remember? All of you who have Starlink, you didn't have connectivity that entire day. Well, most of that day, you didn't have it. So all these systems can fail. We have become far too trusting of these systems, not knowing that you're putting everything into somebody else's hands. Be reminded that computers, man makes those. They can fail at any time. So can your car, so can the wiring in your house. All these things can fail. Power grids can go down. Right? Your batteries can die in your cell phone. We could have communications, right? But often when people are caught in these rainstorms, something happens to their device and the battery will go all the way down. In fact, there's a feature in every single phone that if moisture is detected in certain areas of that phone, the battery goes into a different mode altogether, and it will not allow but a certain amount of milliamps to be drawn from that battery, which means your phone's not going to operate. It's not. You're not going to make calls. You're not going to do any of that. So make sure of that. So that means you got to have a meeting place for your families. That's for peace of mind where you guys can meet up. And if you have kids, because you got to let them know it too. Can you imagine if something happened, communications went down? You'd be worried to death about your family. But those who designate those meeting places, right, can meet up in those places in case something happens, and they can plan from that point forward. There will be disruptions by water. There are going to be disruptions by fire. There will be disruptions because of chemical. And the entire, digital world is going to undergo some severe hacking, some compromises as the time we're in. So have those things in place as a start. That is a start. Of all the events we could undergo, the weather situation is going to take a turn. Please be ready for that. Artificial intelligence will be something else that won't easily be circumvented. It's not. And some of you guys have some fear issues you have to work through so you can fully appreciate the scope of what's about to take place. People will turn against people. They will. You have to be prepared for that. In the Word of God, when it says children are going to turn their parents in to be put to death, all right, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but very near there. If you look at the world right now 20, 30 years ago, that was not the case. But these days, there are lots of kids killing their parents. Now, I hate to be, graphic like that, but it's somewhat blunt. It's a bad situation. It's increasing around the globe. Many of these children are unhinged, and they will do the unthinkable. So don't put it in your minds to say that, that those young people, they won't do all of that. Yes, they have been doing that. They have been. There have been too many children lately killing their parents, which means kids have no regard for their parents, by and large. They don't. They're doing the very thing that many people warned about in 2006. Do you guys remember what they were saying in 2006? Especially Christians were saying this in 2006. They kept telling people it was a resounding message that was going out from people talking. And it was popping up in Yahoo at the time and other places. They were talking about a hive mind mentality. Surely you guys remember that. They were talking about demonic entities. They were talking about giants and how they had a hive mind mentality without knowing. The video game industry took off during that time, and it has effectively given children a hive mind mentality. Our kids have undergone drastic changes. They do require lots of prayer. But there's a brokenness to these kids today. I mean, they're on the edge. They're the ones that interact with AI all the time. They are the ones that spend the majority of their time on computers. They are the ones who have these specific outlooks on everything. In fact, as far as their idea of this nation, they don't have the same view that you do. They do not see Trump as you do. They don't see Obama as you do. They don't see politics as you do. And they're starting to run the world now. Those same children that were consumed by video games, by bullying in schools, by the new subject matter, the new histories, the new ways of teaching, these guys are now in their 30s. That's considered old. My point is, they've taken many leadership roles. They're starting to run the world. The world is going to reflect their presence. They do not share in your ideologies. They do believe in climate change by humans. Yeah, I believe in climate change, right? Because the climate's changing. I just don't attribute that cause to humanity. Scientists are not very forthcoming. This is going to sound childish, but I'm going to give you a small fact. What is responsible, by and large, for causing rain in the first place? Does anybody know? Anybody? And I'm being factual here, But by and large, what is responsible for causing rain? Does anybody know? It's going to sound weird. It's something that you probably not really heard about. It's going to sound odd, strange, but don't worry, you can do your research. I think I said it here twice before. That's it. Just 2 times. You ready? Here's the answer. Trees. Trees. Did you know that? Can I give you a small example? I give you this small example because it's one of the best examples. But in South America, there's a tree, a specific set of trees that give off a chemical in the atmosphere. Whenever that chemical goes up in the atmosphere, it's like cloud seeding. And it rains about 15 to 20 minutes after the trees release this specific chemical. Now, they don't do it all the time. The trees only do this based on the biology of the tree. If they're chopping down trees, because trees are networked through their roots. They really are. And I know they try to make this stuff playful and everything else, but trees somewhat communicate with one another. Not like talking. It's not like that. But based on conditions, they can send out certain chemicals in the soil that other trees pick up. Well, once these signals are picked up and no rain has fallen, for example, for that specific area, they can send off a signal. And in South America, you can actually see this chemical. You can actually capture this chemical being sent up by the trees into the atmosphere. Guaranteed heavy thunderstorms right after that is released. It is just like cloud seeding. In fact, some of the cloud seeding that's taking place is modeled after those trees, those in South America and North America. Now think about something else. Of all the foliage on the earth, are not the trees suffering the most? In fact, in 2010, in the middle of summer, people began to notice chlorophyll being pulled back from the leaves of the tree. So in summer, it looked like the leaves of the trees were changing. That's what it looked like. That's when they were really being scorched by the sun. Right, being burnt by the sun, and the tree conserving, certain things. In some cases, it was making too much food, and it would draw too much heat from the sun, heating the whole tree up without the other nutrients, right? Effectively drying it out. Just plenty of things. But they release things into the atmosphere, is what I'm saying. So they're responsible for a lot of this rain. Now, the atmosphere is the harder the atmosphere gets in the upper atmospheres, right, the more of a potential of moisture it can store. Right now, the atmosphere can store twice as much rain as it did 5 years ago. Next year, it's going to be able to store, I think, 12 to 15 times more rain than it was able to store. That means you have a higher potential of flooding. So next year, just about every storm is going to cause flooding. If we're still here next year, every storm will cause flooding. For the most part, these storms that we've been having lately, they have been causing massive floods and massive damage. I mean, massive damage. The sinkholes are coming back too. This rain has eroded the ground underneath many structures, and every time this happens, sinkholes begin again. But this time, we're going to see sinkholes the size of cities. That's coming too. So people will be instantly disrupted based on where they live. And that's not going to stop. That's going to continue to build. Do you guys remember the Dust Bowl? I encourage everybody to find a documentary on the Dust Bowl to acclimate yourself mentally to living in those conditions. Because right after all this water, we're going to have no rain whatsoever. I'll clue you in on something. You ready for this? You guessed it. Man has recognized something is wrong with the weather. Now, I'm telling you this directly, but don't ask me about this, nor will I explain it. There will be adaptations. There will be methods employed that will stop the flooding from happening. You hear me? There will be modifications to stop the world from flooding. And it's not going to end in a good light. In a good way. It won't. There will be methods. Now, during this time, because this will become a global crisis, the water is going to become a global crisis. The water will. It's already damaged a lot of crops. Most of the foods that you have right now, it will state on the package, those are biologically engineered foods. I'm sure that you guys have been seeing that on food labels. Sure that you've been seeing it. If you read those labels, you'll see it. Right? Those biologically engineered food. Even the snack, who remembers those oatmeal cakes? You guys remember the oatmeal cakes with the cream on the inside? On the box, this is biologically engineered. What? Yep. Yes. So even, everything is changing this time that you see them. But don't worry, I'm going to be very specific with these subjects. I'm just kind of doing a quick summary right now, a kind of haphazard conversation to let you guys know what we're going to be discussing in great detail so that you know it. Because once you have a grip on it, once you can see it for real, no theories, I'm talking about the real deal. Once you can see the real deal, you can then determine things for yourself. There's no way you can make an informed decision without being informed. Now, I'm not promoting you to go out there and gather information, right? It's kind of like reading, because like these media sites, sadly, those who don't look at the news, right? They're missing, they have no information. They're missing, they have a lack of information. And those who do listen to these news sites are misinformed. So you have those who are uninformed. And then when you do look at the news cycles, you're misinformed. So we have to get down to some of the deeper subjects. Not theory, but get down to the deeper subjects. Some of the theories out there are good. But here's a problem I see. Have you guys noticed that most of what they're calling truth is not truth? It's only theory. Have you guys noticed that? Have you noticed that everybody has a theory these days? And largely, that's what all these news cycles have turned into, a bunch of theories. They don't care about truth. They really don't care about truth. They care about being first. They care less about truth. They really care about being the first one out there. Because, let's be honest, that's the way they're rewarded financially on the internet. And anybody out there who has that as a business, there are lots of people who do, they know that if they're not first, they're going to take a financial hit. That's the way the world has formulated or encouraged, right, a type of competitiveness with information. They don't care if it's theory or not. If you get this story out there first, you will be rewarded. That's how they operate. So they're not concerned about truth. That's why the rumor mill is flowing so much. People get information. They're not validating any of that information. They just put it out there. They don't care if it's a lie or not. They just want to be first so they can make the money. That's it. That's what they want to do. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they no longer differentiate between somebody being first and coming out with a bunch of theories, he said, she said stuff, and then those were factual, because it takes time to research, right? It takes time to get those facts up. But that's not what you're getting. Like this old Trump ordeal, right? And the Obama ordeal and these other ordeals. Once you start looking into these things by pulling up records in local police stations yourself, you find out something very different. Very different. Remember that politicians, they end up conversing by way of politics. So you have to remember. We're close though. My goodness. So people, they don't even want the truth. They want the best rumor or the best theory. That's what they want. Now they're about to bedazzle the entire earth. You're right where they want you to be, and many people are doing exactly what they counted on you to do, even the Christians. That's so sad to say. But that too is a fact. People are doing exactly what they planned on them doing, what they wanted them to do. Exactly. In other words, the world right now is exactly how they wanted it to be. This is something you'll have to see. All right. Now, just for a brief moment, anybody have any questions? Anybody? Don't forget about your families, preparations. Give that a priority. Oh, all of you. You know how they have go bags, right? All of you need a critical bag, right? A critical bag is a bag that can go into any go bag or something like that, whatever your method of choice is. A critical bag has critical things in it, small items, right? You'll need those. Things that people normally forget. You'll need them. We'll have a list of those things. I'll tell you what, fingernail clippers, that's one of them. That's one of them. Fingernail clippers. You know how many people will forget fingernail clippers? And then you'll have people with ingrown toenails within 2 weeks. You'll have folks with hands that hurt within a month. And that can disable a person. That can. Chapstick is another one. Okay, some questions. Let me sit down, guys. Let me sit down because I've been standing up. So I gotta wash myself sometimes. I may divulge too much. I don't want to do that. I need this. I need our conversations recorded and structured and truthful and forthcoming and honest, so that you guys are properly prepared. So homework or deep dives. We have done toothpicks. Listerine is better than toothpicks. Toothpicks can actually get you into trouble. Yeah, they can, but I guess it wouldn't be a bad thing to have. All right, I'm going to start Mixler. Let's see. Mixler says, do you have any info concerning Michigan? Yes. When is the water event going to happen? That's a good question. We're building up to it now, right? What will cause the water event? There are 15 underwater volcanoes we're going to have to deal with, right? There's a movement of the ice, which will likely be the catalyst of the whole thing. The sad part is the ice melting from beneath these big bodies could happen at any given time. And then you'll have a change in the height of the water all across the earth without a volcano, without, right, an eruption, without any of those things. The water levels could rapidly change. So the water event is going to be part of that. The other part is underwater volcanic systems. For example, this week, we'll likely see 2 eruptions. 1 eruption this week, probably the next one will happen the week after. But those eruptions they'll start to signify the instability of the crustal plating, right? Because it will ultimately cause a huge separation in the plates, a type of fracture that pops, right? When that takes place, it's going to make Fukushima's issue look like a wading pool or something. So we're gonna have to deal with those things. Plus, with these eruptions, often what happens are these large caverns are formed. New sea life comes out from underneath the ocean floor, interfering with everything else, and it will start destroying life in the oceans. A lot of deep sea animals starting to come. Some really deep sea animals are coming up. Big ones, humongous ones. They're a problem for the Navy, for example. They've been having an issue with a certain type of organism for about the last, 2 or 3 years. Big problem with that. We're going to find out that life is not exactly, somebody said megalodon. No, not megalodon, something else. They've been having an issue with it. People who live on the coasts, they're going to begin to have issues with some of the larger threats, aquatic life coming up to shore itself, and that won't be good. Then, of course, we have our topside problem that people are going to have to deal with, Hopefully we got that answered for you. Somebody says, what's that say? Oh, what? I thought I said when. All right, let's go to COT. Let's see. Mike is the Atlas, the evil constellation. No, the evil constellation I spoke of is indeed a constellation. A constellation will be a group of stars, right, that show in a specific format. But in this case, they're going to be of a very specific color or color range. So it will actually be a constellation. One of the misnomers is, have you guys ever noticed that there are certain constellations? I shouldn't even say this, but I will say it. I'll go ahead and say it. No, I'm not going to say it because some of you guys believe in flat earth and some believe in other. I don't care what the earth is, to be honest with you. It's our Father's creations. It's not going to bother me, whatever shape it's in. But there are certain constellations that have been recorded that are not moving with the rest of the constellations. Not anymore. Don't ask me what the change was, but they're not moving with the rest of the constellations, right? And everything has been digitized to hide these known anomalies. If you look at your iPad at the night sky, your device at the night sky, it's operated by a program which is in feeding from a database, right? And that database, its data is coming from a satellite that's filtered and, put through a chain of data tables, and it gets to you, which means that stuff could be easily altered before it ever gets to your screen. You won't even notice things are out of position, but things are out of position, right? Things are really out of position. You're not going to notice that unless you have can screenshot what the sky is supposed to look like on a specific date and never have that machine go back online again. Somebody says, what if you have nowhere to go? That doesn't matter. Listen, the Lord works this way. We are required, right, of those things we are able to do. We are not required of those things we're not able to do. So if you were in a place and you had to prepare for your family, but you had little to no resources, right? Say all you could do is pray, then I'm telling you that prayer is going to be enough. Do you hear me? It will be enough. Now, for those of you who can make preparations, you can't sit back and just pray and not do nothing. You're going to have to utilize what you have. It will be required of you. Do you hear me? So in essence, the principle is this. What you have is required of you. What you don't have is not required of you. God requires stewardship of us. So whatever we have, we are to utilize, and he requires us to utilize it. It's just like me. If there's no way I could get away with just praying. I know it sounds odd. I can't just pray. I've got to get up and go employ my skill sets. That's what the Lord requires of us. That's why I have certain skill sets. Right? All right. Everybody has that. Let's see. Let me go back to, let's see, is the flooding going to be everywhere? Yes. Yeah, it will. It will. How many people don't know about the scripture in the Bible concerning flooding? See, you have a lot of people that say, well, they don't think everything will flood again because of what the Lord said. But we read that here one day. Do you guys remember? God said he would not destroy, I'm going to paraphrase, he would not destroy all life on the earth again by way of a flood. That's not what this is going to be. Think of water 3 inches high everywhere. Think of that. And so you have to think of, are there going to be dry places that you can get to? Well, those places are going to be waterlogged. They're going to be different, hard to get to, right? But everything will eventually be touched by the water. Okay, next question. Let's get the next one. Let's get these in there, guys. Somebody says, wait a minute. Somebody says, I know you don't invest in crypto. Oh, Suzuki, it went away. Wait a minute. That was a mic mistake. I know you don't invest in crypto, but to help us prepare for our families, can we share which will be the leader in the new system? Now, understand this, right? Those of you who believe in Christ, if you were saving skunks, the Lord can make it so those skunks are going to be the very thing you need for your families. Don't get it the opposite way around. Don't think that the tangible thing is the answer. The tangible thing is not the answer, right? The Father is the answer which can transmute the tangible thing. Does that make sense? If you had nothing but rocks, you say, hey, and the Lord told you these rocks are going to save your family, right? In a world full of money, people would laugh at you now until a day came. A day would come where those rocks would come in handy. Flights would be going out. You don't have any money, but you have those rocks. And your family gets on there, well, we got no money, but we have these rocks. And a guy comes up and says, oh, good. We really do need those rocks for our suppression system. Because if we just lost a tank, you can grind the rocks and use that powder for that suppression system. Those cylinders will smash those rocks. That's a real thing, by the way. You wouldn't even know that. But it'd be your rite of passage. See? So the deal is this. Let the Father instruct you. Don't be instructed by fear. Don't be instructed by anxiety. Be instructed by the Father. The only way, or I should say to effectively be instructed by the Father, means prayer and dependency upon that prayer. You need answers and direction. Now, a principle of our God, of our Father, is to instruct you in the hour you need to be instructed. God is not going to give you the answer 15 years before, the thing happens. He already told us how the Holy Spirit works. We don't have to think before time what we're going to say in situations and all these different things. The Holy Spirit will teach us in the hour we need to know it. Now, of your substance, we are to honor the Father with all of our power. That includes substance and everything else. So with your tangible things, commit them unto usage of the kingdom. Do the right thing with them. But never make a mistake and think that the tangible thing is going to save your skin. That's not the way it works. Your Father will use the tangible things according to his word for your life, whether you have it or not. Okay? Trust in the Most High. Depend upon him. He'll lead and guide you in what you need to do. As far as general things, be a responsible person. It's just like me. I know one day I'm not going to be here on this earth. I had a will at the age of 18 because I knew I wasn't going to be here. I already knew that. If all of us know that we have an expiration date in the flesh, right? Lest we be that last generation who was called up to forever be with the Lord in the clouds, right? But I don't know if we're going to be around. Lots of people were not around for that. They're gone already. And I often think about those who will come behind me. I have to leave them a trail of truth. There's no way I can leave this earth and leave anybody stranded like that. Right? I was left stranded. So I'm not going to leave anybody else stranded. Anybody else been left stranded? Been left with absolutely nothing? Anybody? I mean, you really had to fight your way everywhere you went because you were left with nothing? Anybody ever had that? I'm not going to leave somebody else like that. In the Bible, it says that is neglecting responsibility. That's just like back in the day. They had their graves ready. They had their places marked out, right? They did. If you start looking at the history of things, that was an amazing thing. Parents had already left things to their kids. By the family name, it was an understood rule. Who would get what? But people these days, you know what? People pass away these days. They don't expect to pass away. But they haven't handled their business for somebody else. They haven't. When you want everything of your life to complement the goodness that's been upon your life from the Lord, you will be a blessing to somebody in this earth. You will. You will. Okay. Let me see. Let me go back here. Waves of energy, or that was coming from a specific object. They haven't stopped, by the way. They're still doing their thing. Somebody says, Mike, what do you think about 3 Atlas? What do you think that is? I'll tell you this. Let me give you it's my honest overview. Right? I haven't thought about it. No, I haven't thought about it. I haven't put, there are some things I know of, I'm just not thinking about that. Now, I'm not minimizing what anybody says it could be. Okay, I'm not minimizing the fact that it is the third object that's been of its kind. I'm just not focused on that. Does that make sense? Not focused on that. All right, somebody else says, let's see. How can we have 3 inches of water all over the earth in different elevations? Land shifts. That's how. Think of it this way. If water is shifted on the earth, there's no way the land masses are going to stay the same. Now, to understand that, you have to see how these mountain ranges and everything else in true scale, with ground topology and the rock strata below that, you have to see it, how it's really structured. Once you do, you can see, oh my goodness, we're in trouble. Like these mountain ranges that we have, right? It's almost like somebody pushed a rock up through sand. When you look in the rock strata, you can see where the rock was upthrust. Now, it was already recorded, and I like some of these ancient, recordings of mountain ranges and things, and when you find them, they're really precious because, take, for example, the Grand Canyons. There are some questions about the Grand Canyons that archaeologists they just can't make it work with real science because some of the material in the Grand Canyons is younger than some of the rock that's supposed to be newer than that material. So imagine if you had a big mountain, right? You have a big, huge mountain. Nobody can get to the top. But at the top of the mountain, right? The top of the mountain, you find some stuff at the top of the mountain, and it's older at the top of the mountain than it is at the bottom of the mountain. Wouldn't the base of the mountain, anything in the base of the mountain is supposed to be older than anything embedded in the rock at the top, correct? You're not supposed to have items at the top, right, that are like that super older than the items at the bottom. It's a simple principle. If you start digging today, and you did that for the rest of your life, the deeper you go, the older items you're going to find. But what if it didn't work that way? What if the deeper you dug, the newer the items you would find? That's essentially what has happened at the Grand Canyons. How can that be? That's easy. Something turned over. And I'll submit to you right now, they will not disclose the true geological history of this earth. They're just not going to do it. They have people looking at these small segments, but they keep people so separated that they cannot converse with everybody at the same time to hide the story. Why would it be detrimental? Because if people knew that certain mountain ranges formed overnight, that would just destroy this control ideology that they have over most. That's why. Let's see here. What another thing? Oh, okay, let's see. Is the outgassing of the rock exhaust or whatever they use to slow down in space? Is what? Is that outgassing or rocket exhaust or whatever they use to slow down in space? Or what, the objects that are moving? In what regard are you saying that? I totally missed that one, guys. Question, what about people with elderly or disabled children? That's what we're here for. That's the burden we carry. We already know the world. Listen, is the world really concerned about that? It wasn't last month, during a storm, they left elderly people in a structure and nobody went back to it until a week and a half later. They left the people in the structure and they went back to it a week and a half later. There were only 2 people that were alive after that. They did not die during the storm. They died after the storm because they didn't get their medications. Nobody was taking care of them. This happens all over it's almost like, to be honest, I just have to be honest about it. They don't care about the old and frail. They don't care about the unborn. They don't care about the children. You got all this stuff that's happening in Los Angeles. Do you know what's underneath Los Angeles? Why in the world is it, I'm going to say, rumored to be tunnels and cities underneath Los Angeles where children are trafficked? And no one is talking about that anymore because of the raids that are taking place above ground. Before that raid stuff started, they were about to expose a big portion of that tunneling system. They did 2 documentaries on the people that live underneath the streets there of LA, right? 2 documentaries, and that led them to find some children. And then somebody said it's a city-sized place underneath Los Angeles full of children. And then the day after that announcement was made, in going across the border, they stopped a cargo truck, a truck with looked like half of a shipping container with an oxygen tank or some tank on the back, probably for air. It was full of kids. The oldest child in that container was 10 years old. Many of those kids were dead. Some were alive. When that took place, the entire paradigm, the West altered. Why is there even a story of a Jeffrey Epstein? You know, Jeffrey Epstein, so what if he was twisted and crooked? He can't be twisted and crooked, draw everybody into that, unless there's an appetite for what he was doing. Now, you think about that. In order for him to have built so much surrounding that stuff he was doing, there had to be an appetite. There was an appetite for the dark things he was involved with. Do you hear me? A lot of people, they get so used to blaming the person, and they forget that people like Jeffrey Epstein were simply feeding the desires of other monsters. You cannot feed the desires of other monsters if they don't exist. This guy facilitated what these other people demanded and what they wanted, what they had a craving for. And guarantee there are lots of those people. And guarantee they will not expose those people. They will not. If you're waiting on that, they're not going to expose those people. That would tear down many things you love and trust. You would not see people the same anymore. When children are involved, they know. When the public sees that, it's game over. Game over. Hotel chains have since been busted working with the Epstein folks. Many people are involved. People that you may look up to. Who knows? They're talking about a bunch of billionaires, folks. A bunch of billionaires who can appear and disappear when they want. And of course, they had to have a fall guy. I'll tell you something about Jeffrey Epstein. If he didn't want to be found, there's no one on this earth who could have found him. Many people don't even know the depth of what that guy did in the first place. Jeffrey Epstein was everywhere. Do you hear me? He was everywhere. In every state. He was everywhere. And what people craved, he provided. Well, folks, it is that time. It is. Somebody said I met a billionaire in Fed prison. We got busted buying a whole island off the California coast. You know what? These things are, it's odd. It's odd to live in a world where a person who has done that is just, I don't know, people cover for this person. They're still covering for that person. Somebody says time frame on digital failure. Well, I tell you what, you might want to start taking your precautions today. And the reason I'm saying that, it's going to take you more than one day to secure, digital things. Believe me, it can be daunting. And by the way, there are many systems compromised already. I know that some of you have noticed your computers, right, rearranging themselves, your devices rearranging themselves. I know you've noticed this. See, these type hacks that are happening right now are designed to get to the infrastructure. They have to work around the lists that Norton has, the lists that all these other security companies have. Much of this is being done from the inside. It's being initiated from U.S. citizens. And we're talking about U.S. citizens you would never suspect. So not necessarily ethnic persons. You can't look at their, what race are they? You can't say that anymore. All right, folks, let's see. It's true. Well, that was most of the questions. Are these floods only in the USA? No, they're worldwide. It'll be worldwide, unfortunately. And in fact, the process has already begun. Do you guys know how much ice is melted in the poles? Let's put it this way. One side of the poles has lost so much ice. It's just an unbelievable number. The other side has gained that same amount of ice, which means you have an alteration in the physical poles now. There's difference. Folks, you guys be blessed. Listen, I'm going to come back when I do come back, or we're going to start some of our deeper subjects, if you guys don't mind, so we get this show on the road. Preparations is very important. Identification of people is very important. Somebody suggested that for identification tags, like a dog tag or something like that, I don't see where that would come into play. But if need be, that can be done. That could be done. But identifying your family, having papers for your family, is going to be very important. We have to get through a water event that will be preceded by a bug migration and flying insects flying all over the place. Then we have to get through the time of fire and dryness, when the droughts take their toll. When the droughts take their toll, many people are going to go missing. Many people, they're going to go missing. After the fire, they're going to have to deal with two other types of circumstances. Oops. God bless each of you. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow right here at the Council of Time. I'm going to leave both, I'm going to cut everything off abruptly. I'm getting a Q sign so we can get back to our things here. Yes, and Robin says meteor shower tonight. You guys know this week we're going to cover some meteor showers and a threat in those meteor showers that you need to know about. So I do hope that everybody is ready for an impact, but not any named impacts. You have objects like Atlas that people are looking at, right? There are other dangers out there. I do believe that one is a little more immediate. So we're going to be looking into all those things. That begins tomorrow. Lord willing, right here at COT. That begins tomorrow. So I hope to see you guys. I hope to see you guys then. That'll be on our schedule also. Right? You guys continue to pray for COT. We're about to ignite some of the framework. We're going to see how that works. So it'll be some, we're going to see test the robustness of it. We have to send it through some tests. Make sure it's bulletproof before we throw some things on there. Okay? Once that framework is up and running, we can go ahead and add everything to it, and we have no problems in our further, development of things. We're doing it. Going through our expansion phase. All right, you all, no more questions for me. Somebody said they just lost their DD-214. they have it. They should have it digitized. Even the records that were burned up let me not get on that subject, but there were some records lost. Some of you your records may have been in that place where the records were lost. They have digitized all those records again, just so you know. So you can request DD-214s and your whole service package. You can get that package. And those of you who have your quote unquote files from your commission service, you can get those also. So they've restored quite a bit. Folks, I'll see you guys tomorrow right here at the Council of Time, Lord willing, at the same time. And the schedule will be updated by tomorrow at noon. It'll be updated with our content. Okay? God bless and keep you guys. Remember, prepare yourselves to see the truth. Prepare yourselves. Somebody says, what's going to be the average height of the water? I would say about 3 to 6 inches. It's not going to stay there forever either. Just imagine a day when the earth is covered with water everywhere. Right? Some places deeper than others, but on average about 3 inches. Just think of that. That means the water's both moving, right? So it's not going to settle and become stagnant, staying on there. No. It'll be shifting and moving. But you know what water does to volcanoes? Anybody? If you expose a volcano to water, you guys do know what happens, right? Explosions. More explosions. So that'll cause cascading events, right? Geological failures across the board. So be prepared for that. Be prepared for that. Fog to yes. Atmosphere is going to deal with that, but we're going to line all of that out so you guys will know what I know for the most part. I'm going to make it clear and concise as possible. That means you can, because I think it's good when you have data like that, to have it in a way where you guys can go out and really validate every day, make your comparisons to see where things are actually going, right? This is not about being right one time for all time. No. This is about something we're going to face. We're going to track it to make sure that our timing benefits our families. This isn't about, this is not a prophecy. That's not what this is. This is a forecast, and we're going to track those events so that we have a good idea of how these things will unfold and can, do things appropriately and accordingly for our families to keep them in safer conditions. That's what this is about, right? That's what this is about. But you don't hear anybody discussing a water event. You will here shortly. They'll finally start talking about it, right? But they're not going to talk about anything until they have some sort of put things in place. They're putting things in place. All right, everybody. I'm going to see you guys next time right here at the Council of Time. God bless each and every one of you. And let me get this button right in the right place. This is a mess over here, everybody. I have windows all over the place. God bless. It's always an honor to be able to talk with you guys. And I hope that this week will serve you guys well. I really do. God bless and keep you all. See you next time right here at COT. God bless.